basically, the broader, bolder approach is an attempt to try to acknowledge that issues like poverty and inequality impact academic outcomes for kids, and that we as a nation have to think more holistically about the needs of children. We need to focus on academics, but we also need to focus on hunger, on health, on nutrition. We have to have a holistic, well-rounded vision. And that vision needs to also include early childhood education. It needs to include music and science and art. Our kids need it all. They don't just need a narrow focus on test preparation. And unfortunately, that's what I think No Child Left Behind has done to too many schools, is it's reduced the curriculum to test preparation, and we're not giving the kids the kind of education they deserve. I get to see these schools a lot. I work with a school in New York City, PS28 School, where over 40% of the kids are homeless. And it's a high-performing school. It's a school that stays open until 8 o'clock at night every day, because they have those kids in swimming lessons, they have them in art and music after school. It's a full range of after-school programs. There are programs to engage parents, not just to make sure the parents are involved in the school, but to do ESL classes for parents, adult education classes for parents who want to get their GEDs, job training classes. And the principal just has a vision of the school as a community center. And she did that really on her own, and she did that because she knew that's what it would take to educate those kids, that she couldn't just focus narrowly. And so when you go to a school like a PS28, Sadie Silva is 34 years old. She's a relatively young principal, but she's so visionary. She understands the larger challenge of educating poor children today in America and providing them with the quality education they need. And when you go to a school like that, you come away both inspired at the possibilities, but disappointed that that's not happening for a greater number of kids across America today. The most important accountability is always a kind of mutual accountability. Principals accountable to teachers, teachers accountable to their kids and to the parents they serve, parents accountable to the school and for what they bring to the and in terms of their understanding their rights and responsibilities. Children accountable for their participation, for their role as learners. Everybody needs to be accountable, and this is part of what I think we haven't gotten either. You know, when you go to schools in affluent suburban communities and you ask them, who are you accountable to? They always say, we're accountable to the parents we serve. And that's because the parents they serve remind them. The parents feel entitled and insist upon good education for their kids. When you go to schools in poor communities, whether it be urban or rural communities, and you ask, who are you accountable to? You never hear parents. You hear superintendent, to the board, to the state, and that's a problem. Because if you don't feel accountable to the kids you serve, or to the parents you serve, or to each other, you're not going to do the best work. And so we have to rethink accountability. And I think this is another, our policymakers, part of the problem with our policymakers, they don't know enough about education. And they keep adopting laws that really aren't consistent with what we know works, with what the research shows actually works in producing good schools. I have mixed feelings. On the one hand, I would say the best thing the administration has done so far to help education is it passed the health care bill. Because that will actually help schools. Because if we have fewer sick kids coming to school, if we have more families that are able to avoid bankruptcy because they're not going to go bankrupt because of a catastrophic illness, that's actually going to help schools. A lot of the policies they've come up with so far are really very narrow-minded. They're a continuation of the No Child Behind policies. And here's the biggest problem that I see with the U.S. Department of Education. They know that No Child Behind has a bad reputation. They know that it didn't take us very far, but they don't know what was wrong with it. Right? No Child Behind left us with dropout rates of 50% and higher in many cities across the country. They don't know why. They think now it's just a matter of putting even more pressure on schools. Well, I wrote an article a few years ago called "It Takes More Than Pressure to Improve Schools." You actually have to understand why schools are not performing. What's wrong? I heard Diane Ravitch, who's actually gotten a lot of attention recently, and she said, yesterday she spoke in my class, she said, if we had too much crime in a neighborhood, we wouldn't say, let's shut down the police station. Let's shut down the police station and hire a bunch of people who don't know anything about policing to take it over. Right? We would say, maybe we need more police. Maybe we need a different approach here. When we have failing schools, we say let's shut down the schools. Shutting down schools is not a strategy. It's actually a sign of failure on the part of the people in charge. In New York City, where they've been shutting down so many schools, I said this recently in an interview. I said we didn't want mayoral control so they could shut down schools. We wanted mayoral control so they would fix schools. That's a different set of challenges and a different kind of work.